Okay. Well, you're here for the police department tonight. No place you'd rather be on a nice 12-degree night after a lot of snow today. So it wasn't too bad. It was only roads weren't too bad. We didn't have too many accidents, so it's all good. My name is Steve Wayman. I've been with the city since 1990. I started in January of 1990, so I've been around for a day or two. I was promoted to chief in February of 2005, so I'm on my 20th year as the chief, and I'm on my 36th year with the police department. So I've seen a few things change and get better, all that good stuff throughout the city as it's growing and everything else. So I grew up in Lansing. My parents lived in Lansing. They moved here in 1965. I graduated from Lansing High School in 1986. So haven't been strayed too far away from home. So I'm kind of on the downhill slide of my career, so I know that here in probably 3 to 5 years I will be done, one way or the other. So it's just 36 years is a lot of time. So I don't have any desire to make 40 on that. So with that said, the police department's definitely growing over time. When I started, I've got new officers that come on now, and I try to tell them when I started out with Lansing Police Department, I started out at $7.50 an hour and thought I was doing good. So I can't hire officers for $7.50 an hour anymore. That just don't work. We've got about an 11.6 population within the city. We cover 11 square miles. At least 50 miles of roadway. Every time there's a subdivision or anything put in, we start accumulating more miles to patrol. I'd say we have 25,000 commuters per day. I would say that's probably a low figure of cars that go up and down 4th Street, Main Street, US 73, whatever you want to call it. But that's a lot of cars. A lot of people, I do get the comments and everything about how we've been called everything for doing traffic and everything out here, but if you look at our stats at 25,000 cars a day, our stats really don't support some of the names that we get called. But the other thing that I do is if it makes people think about us when we come in, when they might get stopped, it slows them down. I'll never be able to tell you how many accidents we prevented because people go, oh my God, I'm going into Lansing, I need to slow down. So we'll take that. Click me. Your clicker's not working. There we go. I'm allotted for 19 sworn officers. That includes myself, captain, lieutenant, 3 sergeants, 1 detective, and 12 police officers. I have 1 part-time officer. I'm slotted for 1 SRO. Over the last 5 years, we've been short-staffed like every other first responder agency in the country. In the last 2 years, I've probably replaced or had to rehire about 80% of my staffing, just because had my captain at the time, he retired, Ben Ontiveros. He retired in October. I had some other officers retire the year before, and people move on to other jobs, other positions. Our constant battle is with Johnson County because if you want to make money, you go to Johnson County. It's that simple. I don't currently have an SRO in that slot because I'm just busy training new officers to fill road positions. As soon as we get staffing up, we'll reopen the SRO position to get at least 1 officer into the school. The school has allotted for 2 SROs, so hopefully one of these days I can get staffing and actually staff with 2. But we'll see how that goes on that whole bit. 1 non-sworn personnel, that's my records clerk. She runs the department. She knows more of what's going on within the department than I do, so if I need anything, I go through her. My budget per year is about $2 million. It sounds like a lot, but about 84% of that is payroll, and that includes overtime, holiday pay, and all of that good stuff. So 84% of that $2 million budget goes out the window just to pay people. Our starting salary is competitive with agencies here in the Leavenworth County area. Depending on what you have to offer when you come out. If you just basically have a high school education, you're 21 years old, you'll start out at about 50. If you have experience and you're certified it kind of goes up from there. We have incentives that try to draw people in, and you could probably, a decent officer that has a couple of years, state certified, and can move in, he'd probably be pushing 60, really, just in the door. I know, and again, our biggest competition is down south, but the thing is, money's not everything, because if it was, they would be full, and they wouldn't be hiring officers at the rate they are either. 30 years ago, you'd hear of Lenexa put out a job opening for a police officer, and they would have 200 applicants come in for one position, and now they're lucky if they get 3, 4, 5, just like us. So it's just a competitive game right now on that. Our operational environment, we staff 24/7, 365. Right now, we run 8-hour shifts. As we get more staffing, what I find now with a lot of officers that come in, they like having more time off. So I won't do 12-hour shifts, because 12 hours is a long day, and Murphy will always attack you at that 11.5 hour when you're ready to go home and something happens, and now you're stuck out here for another 3 or 4 hours, and 12 hours is enough to really eat you up, and mistakes happen when you're tired and not thinking right and just had a long day, and you start pushing it at 14 to 16 hours. It's just a lot of wear and tear. What I'd like to do is kind of a hybrid, maybe transform my evening shift into a 10-hour rotation. That way anybody working evening shifts, because that's where most of our calls come in, is on the evenings. Move it to a 4-10 shift, so they get 3 days off, and then overstaff it with personnel. I don't need 5 officers on a midnight rotation, so I can skeletonize it a little bit and move them down to an evening rotation, but kind of make it a little bit easier and give them more days off. We try to run 2 to 4. Our absolute minimum is 2 officers per shift. There have been times when we've been short and have an officer sick or whatever that we may have one, and usually if it's going to be one officer on the road, it'll be during the days, during the week, because the captain and myself are in the office, so if something does happen, then we can respond to help the officer. But my evening shift and midnight shift, primarily, our absolute base minimum is 2. Right now, with some of the guys, I just had 3 officers that graduate from the academy at the end of January. So once they get fully trained up, we'll probably be looking at having 4 or 5 on an evening shift, which will be really nice to have that. And then we divide the city in half. I've got a North District and a South District. So Mary Street is our north-south, because it runs all the way through the city. So that's our north-south divider. Other big expense that I have right now is my fleet. I run 13 vehicles, 2 Ford Explorers. We're going to find out, because I just had a Dodge Charger crash 2 weeks ago, so we're going to find out if it gets totaled out or not. So I'm gonna say that I've got 1, but it could be 0 here in a couple of months, or hopefully before that. And then Durangos, and then 1 Ram 1500. And the AC vehicle is being decommissioned now, because we haven't had an animal control officer for the last 4 years, so we're going to decommission it out. And it was a 2002 Ford truck anyway, so it just takes up a lot of space. Expenditures on that, people don't realize when I lose a car, I've got to replace a car, and the city's been really good that every year I'm allotted 1 replacement vehicle, just to keep my fleet moving on that. But to put a police car together for me is probably about $50,000 to $55,000, which sounds cheap. I get them, we get fleet sales. My Durangos this year cost $43,000 a piece. 3 years ago, they were $35,000 a piece. So, in 3 years, they bumped up price, $8,000. We'll see where they go next year. If all the tariffs and everything else go through, and with all the parts coming in, they could push $50,000. Durangos are the better dog in the fight right now. Not real excited. I've never been really happy with the Explorers. They just had a lot of issues. Chargers, Dodge is kind of doing away with the Charger platform. But what we found is that when you're older and you got all your gear on and climbing in and out of a Charger, it's a long way down and it's a long way up unless you're a really short officer. But once you outfit an officer with all of his gear and everything, you're talking about adding on 30 to 40 pounds. So, climb in and out of a car with an extra 30, 40 pounds, however many times a day, it starts wear and tearing. The Durangos have been a pretty solid platform for us. The Explorers, they just had a lot of issues. The Ram 1500s aren't too bad, but they do have their limitations on some stuff. So, but it is nice having a truck in the fleet. So you got to go pick something up on the road. You got to do whatever. You've got a bed you can throw stuff in. So it has proved useful. The biggest challenge that we have, just like every other agency, is recruiting people and then retaining people. Recruitment is hard because if I have somebody turn in an application and they've got a state certification and they're not working right now, my first question is why. It is a competitive. If you don't have anything in your background and you're not working as a police officer, why? On that, because you can go to a lot of places with that and really get paid to do it. So that's usually my first question. And then recruiting other people, there's a lot of people that look really good on resumes, and then they get out here and it's not the job that they thought it was going to be. Their people skills aren't the best, and they just kind of phase themselves out of the whole thing. Yes, sir.
Yeah, real quick on your, your recruitment, and I can understand your retention.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any idea what your turnover is? I mean, I'm sure you do.
Well, right now we've been pretty reluctant, or not reluctant. We've been pretty good here the last 6 months that I've been able to hold people and get them on the last 18 months. But when I have to hire somebody, if I hire somebody straight in off the road that has no certification, and I got to send them to the academy, they have to go through, and I'll get into that here in a second, but they go through a 14-week academy down at Hutchinson, and then I got a 12-week FTO program that they have to attend also. So if I got to hire somebody off the street, it's a 9-month turnaround, and that doesn't include hiring time. Well, everybody's on a 1-year probationary period when they come out. Yeah. So if they fail all of that, they can go. But so when people say an officer, if I lose an officer walks, and I already know right now I've got one officer that's already told me he's leaving in June. He's moving to North Carolina to be closer to his kids, which I can respect that. His kids are getting older, and he wants to go down there and be part of their lives. And he just retired out of the military a couple of years ago, and has just decided that he wants to go down there, and I'm good with that. I can't fault anybody for that reason. But yeah, I mean it's tough, and some people are it's a lifestyle now to where some people just are ready to get out of it and get away from it because they don't want to be involved anymore. I've lost people, Johnson County right now. If you go to Overland, you can go to Overland Park right now, and if you had, they'll credit you for every year of experience you have, and you could walk in the door at 97. So if you have like 8 years of experience, you'll be 60, 65, and you could walk in the door down there, 97,000 a year starting out.
You have a long history, obviously, in law enforcement. So why this change? I mean, you're talking about a couple hundred applicants, and now currently,
all the years of all the bad press and everything that we've got, it turned a lot of people off of it. The George Floyds and everything else that everybody saw, and then quite honestly, there's a generation now that you have a problem with interpersonal communication. People have a hard time talking to people face to face. So if they could do it on a phone, it'd be fantastic, and they could get away. If they could text, hey, we got a crime. Well, I'm going to text them and find out what's going on. They could do that, but you get in the middle of something now, and you're trying to talk to somebody, and we don't teach talking skills in school anymore. It's all done by email. It's all done by text, and more texts go out than phone calls on that. So, we've got a whole society where you're telling these people here now go out, and these people are mad now, go deal with it. Oh my God, we can't deal with it. But by God, I can get on Facebook and sit there and call everybody what they want to do, and I don't have to look them in the face. 40 years ago you did that, and there'd be a problem, and it'd go get settled out in the parking lot, and things would be done. But a lot of people want to run their mouth, and then everybody wants to talk bad about the police, and they watch videos, and you always catch what the police are doing wrong. Don't ever catch what they're doing right on those little 5-second bits. And I'm not saying all the police officers' actions are good. There's a couple of them that I'm like, oof, that's going to be bad. And you can kind of see it, but if you don't get the whole context of what's going on a video. So, and that's probably the interpersonal communications going through a school level on that is a big thing. On that, phones have been one of the greatest inventions, and they've been one of the worst inventions. All that the cellular phone and everything has been just problematic. It's a good thing, but it's also got every good thing always has a drawback on something, and that's a lot of it. But you got a lot of people that just can't communicate.
You allow your officers to carry their own personal cell phone?
Yeah. Trying to get cell phones out of people's hands now, because the city's never prohibited it. So now trying to get it out of their hands is problematic, because they're going to carry it in their pocket, and they're hide it or whatever on that. So if it was my rather, I leave your phone in your car, because it's only going to get you in trouble. But you got officers now that there's a lot of people in this room. If they had cell phones when we were kids, we'd be in a lot of trouble. It's just that simple. But now kids, and I've had to talk to officers on my department going, don't do that. Don't get on Snapchat and put silly stuff out there. And I've had communications with them, and they're looking at you like, I don't get it. Don't, because that's a problem. Yeah, you will figure this out. So that's and we get into the hiring process. You get 14 weeks at the academy, and that's down it's south of Hutchinson in a small town called Yoder, Kansas. It's 3 hours away. So you've got 14 weeks down at the training academy, and then you got 12 weeks of FTO. And it usually, once we put out a notice for accepting applications, you're probably talking a 2 to 3 month process for that. So you're talking a full 12 months when I lose somebody for replacement. The only thing that can really cut that time down is if they're already certified, and I can bring them online with just the 12 months the 12 weeks, and bring them into that. But still, they've got to take time to learn the city. And once you get somebody brand new and you hire them on, it takes up to 3 years for them to feel comfortable to be able to go handle a call by themselves. After 14 weeks and 12 weeks of FTO, and they get turned out on their loose, and they're driving their police car, they don't know it all, and they're going to sit there and they'll make mistakes. We've all been there, done that. So it takes about 3 years to make an officer solid enough to where they can go handle just about any call and not have questions or be able just to deal with it. So there's a lot of oversight that goes into that. Cost, every officer that I get, the cost, uniforms, body armor is fitted. We use the road officers all like their external body armor. Though that vest right now is gone up in price to about $1,500 a person, and it's fitted, so it's measured for that officer. So if Joe came in and got fitted for a vest, I wouldn't be able. It'd be really hard. I'd have to find somebody his exact measurements for it to fit correctly. And they're only good for 5 years. They're only warranted for 5 years, so that's a repetitive cost every 5 years that I know of. The weapon and time. So just between uniforms, vest, you're probably talking about $3,000, $3,500 a person. The weapons, I take the weapons, and I can recycle the weapons. On that's no big deal. And when I say weapons, our sidearm. Right now, we run the Glock Gen 5 9mm on that, but if somebody quits, I get that back and I recycle it out to the next officer until we decide one of these years to go with something else. And then the time, because I've got multiple officers investing time into making these people work, so it's taken away their job to where they have to train on that. So there's a lot that goes in for hiring somebody. It's not just here you get somebody off the road and they can just go on and pay. When I started out here in 1990, I knew the sergeant at that time, Jeff Smith. He had graduated with one of my sisters from high school, and we rode around for 2 weeks, and he goes, "You're from here, aren't you?" And I went, "Yeah, you graduated with my sister?" He goes, "Yeah, that's right." He goes, "You know what? You're doing good. I'm going back to my shift, and you'll be on midnights by yourself starting tomorrow." So I got 2 weeks of training, and they got, here's the car keys, and don't do anything stupid. Oh, okay. I'll try not to on that. I don't put a lot in the PowerPoint. I don't talk a lot about crime statistics and everything else because, crime, I can sit there and say, yeah, we've got crime. We've got a drug problem here in Lansing. We've got fentanyl. We've got meth. We've got coke. We've got weed. We got THC vapes. You name it all, we have it. We've gone through there. We've had our share of fentanyl overdoses on that. As far as, the big homicides and your higher level felony crimes, do we get at them? Yeah, we absolutely do. Are they at the levels that they get them in Kansas City? No. I don't even know when our last homicide was. I hate talking about it because, knock on wood, that's what I'll end up getting this week, getting that thrown on me. We respond the best that we can. We listen to what the public says, and if they say, hey, there's a problem going here or there, we try to, I try to make sure officers get over in the area and scattered around. With cell phones and mobile devices and everything else, it's so much easier to be a mobile society now. So it's really hard to, used to, you'd say, we got this problem over here at this house and people are going in and out. It's not necessarily that simple, because now we have to develop the case, and getting into that now is a lot harder than it used to be, 20 years ago. But we do it. Our bread and butter is traffic enforcement, and we do a lot of domestics out here. And those are the two most dangerous things that you can deal with: domestics and traffic stops. Because you don't know who you're stopping on a car, and a domestic, it's already an emotionally charged environment that you're going into on there. And that's where a lot of your aggravated batteries occur with those, and that's the weirdest stuff, because you'll have one party get the ever living tar beat out of them, and you take the other person to jail, and the next thing you know, you go by there tomorrow or the next day, and they're back there together sitting out on the front porch, and you're like, okay, on that. But the traffic side of it, I'm a big believer in the traffic side. Being seen out here, that the 5 minutes, 10 minutes the officers are on the side of the road with the number of cars that go by. Because the other thing with being a mobile society, even the bad guys see our cars out here, and we're stopping cars. So guess what? They don't want to be around here either, to where they have a chance of running into us. So that's a really I've been called a lot of things, and it usually deals with traffic, and being short of people. The traffic hasn't been quite as enforced out here on the highway. Now we get calls from people going, "You guys need to be out here more, because we used to see you all the time, and now we don't see you." So it's hit or miss. But like I said, that the number of times that we can say that people slow down, because I know as soon as I go into Lansing, I hit the brakes and I slow and I watch that, I can't get any better. I can't get any better publicity than that, because I'll never know how many wrecks that we were able to avoid, because people were going, I'm slowing down and paying attention to what I'm doing, as opposed to we've had our this a couple months ago we had a couple fatalities out here on the highway. Those are never fun to work, and that was a pretty big one, and it's just kind of, you just never know when that's going to happen. I know one of the things I put a request in on the light here at 4-H is a blinking yellow arrow, because there's an arrow. There's a lot of people that are like, I thought the light was green, so I made the turn, and they turned right in front. And that's how I may end up losing my next car. This lady turned right in front of my officer and took out the front end of the Charger. So I've asked Mike Spickelmeyer, who you guys have already had the class with. He's doing the research now to find out what it would take to redo that redo the north and southbound lights and put a blinking yellow arrow in there when the lights are green. And maybe, again, I'll never know if we get it. I'll never know how many accidents we save on, because the people that go, oh, there's a blinking yellow, I'm not going to make a turn. I can't remember if that one has a sign that, I think it has a sign that says green light, oncoming traffic has right of way or something. I mean, there's something like that. Yeah, but the lights that we put out I drove out through DeSoto Road this morning, and the lights that are out there by the high school have the blinking yellow on it to sit there and tell people, and I'm like, oh, that's, we got that light there, why can't we get it here on the state highway? But the city's got to pay for it, and right now we're pushing, I think the cost that we're looking at is like $35,000. So,
Just don't put anything crazy like they did on parallel and stuff.
you know what, when the troopers are even going, I don't know what they're doing down there. That was something that KDOT came up with to try to figure out, and I look at that and go, I don't get it, but okay, whatever. I don't know. I haven't figured that one out, how you sit there and go, here, make a left-hand or right-hand turn, go really fast, jump 2 lanes, and then stop at a light so that you can come back around and go straight down parallel. There's people that get paid more than I do that figure that out and have to draw that stuff up. So that's, right now the big thing that I've got is that, money is tight within the city, because the city did take on the fire department at the first year. So there's another department that has to be funded. The pool that's coming in this year, that's another thing that city, we don't know what that's going to cost. So, when I'm going in asking for money, I'm looking at trying to upgrade and get video cameras in cars, or dash cams. We used to have them, and then I'm the kiss of death for dash cam companies, because every time I go to one, they end up going out of business. So I've gone through 3 companies, and I guess I put them all out of business. But right now, the cheapest price I have is about $112,000 for all my cars, all my patrol cars, to have that, with the highest end going at $196,000. And that's for 10 cars, 10 dash cameras for my police cars. So, yeah, I'd love to spend the money, but I've got a boss that kind of goes, ooh, and Beth can't print me enough money to sit there and go buy those things and just write a check. Um, yeah. So, there's things like that, and that a lot of that is cloud storage, and that's the biggest price out of that is cloud storage. It's my body cams. All of my patrol officers have body cams. My storage cost for that per year is $25,000, is what it costs, and they store, they keep, if we don't if it's marked correctly, it'll be held indefinitely. If it's not marked correctly, it gets erased after 6 months. So with the number of body cams that I have, that's what Axon charges me, is $25,000 a year just to hold my data, because we've got a really tight-ass IT person that don't want to go to servers, and I'm not going to mention who that is on there. Yeah, nobody looked at you, but everybody laughed. I thought that was funny. That's pretty good. But it all boils down. The tasers. And to give an idea of cost is that taser is a byproduct of Axon. All my officers are issued tasers, and right now they've updated their taser to like the X10 or whatever it is now. That one I'm not even sure of because it's like an $8,000 or $9,000 unit, and when you have I don't even issue it out to me or the captain or lieutenant, so you're still looking at 16 of those times 9,000, so you're still talking $100,000 just in tasers. So that's coming down the line. I'm going to hold on to what I have for as long as I can, and then once they start breaking and phasing out, then I'll have to figure something out at that point in time. Portable radios, I try to replace a couple of these every year. These are $4,000 a hit on there, so last year I just replaced all of my in-car digital radios and went to a system that's capable of being encrypted, because right now we don't run encrypted channels, but I can see in the future that somebody is going to dictate that public safety goes to an encrypted channel so that people just can't listen to it. I can't even remember the cost. That was $50,000, I think, to replace all my 800 base radios in my cars. On that, the price of cars everything's gone up in price. The price of my personnel have gone up on that whole bit. So it's just all a money game, and it all comes out of tax system, because nobody wants to pay more taxes, but officers don't want to work for free. So it's kind of a catch-22 on everything. So right now, like I said, we're doing okay. I'm still about 5 officers short, but I just got 3 out of the academy. I just got them going. We've got a couple of people in the chute that when I go to test somebody, they've got to take a written test, and it's amazing how many people can't do a simple written test for a police officer. And an entry-level testing, it's not rocket science. It's word, what's this word mean? What's 2 + 2? And I've got people that can't pass the math portion of this. And when I say can't pass it, 70% is passing. I've had people score in the 30s on math, and you're like, whoa, how is that going on? So there's comprehension and everything else, and the thing about having the written test is that's part of it. I've got to know what they're doing there, because when they go to the academy, that kind of goes in line with what's at the academy, because they've got testing and everything they have to do at the academy. If they can't pass this part, why do I waste 14 weeks of sending them down to the academy? Because you have to pass the academy with a certain percentage too. So, and if they don't pass, that's money that I just wasted. Yeah, we do a written test, and then we also have by state guidelines or KLETC guidelines or CPOST guidelines, they have to pass a psychological test also. So I have to send them to a psychiatrist. And per person, that's running about $550 to $600 per person for them to go in and get cleared by a psychiatrist to be able to do this job.
How many people that you've pre-screening that they were found acceptable sent to the academy but didn't make it, as far as they just weren't
Once we get that far, you're in pretty good shape. Now I've had some of them that have gotten through the academy by the skin of their teeth, and it's. And they teach, the academy, they teach you everything, and they go over there and you've got study time and everything else. So and the academy's pretty good now that if they see somebody struggling, they've got tutors and everything else that will work with them. And they've also they've dumbed down the academy from what it was. I mean that's the easiest way for me to say it, is that they've dumbed it down, because it's a whole different teaching philosophy that they have now. But I get people out of the academy, and we still have to go through and teach them how to write a report. Having somebody sit down and actually, what happened? What did you hear? What did you learn? Now put it on paper, and you're like, you're missing this and this and this and this, and they're just like, let me write this in red for you. And so there's a lot more work than there used to be, and that's and a lot of that is that I think you're going to see some more. You're going to start seeing AI generated stuff, which I don't think the courts are going to like.
I was just going to ask that because I know that a lot of people, including students, are utilizing AI.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them are generated, but some.
That's going to work real well in law enforcement until you get a smart defense attorney that asks that question, and he says, "Are these in your words?" And then once you say no and they find out it was generated, now you've lied. Now they've got you on a giglio and your career is done because now they can't use you in court testimony anymore because you've already gotten caught on stand for a lie. So, yeah, it's a whole fun world that, and these people have done it and used it and gone through college and used it. And now they're like, well, I'm a police officer. I did this before. Why can't I do it now?
So what you're saying is that whenever I draft a police report, it has to be a product of the officer.
Yeah. Yeah, it's what you saw, and because all a police report is what is me as a police officer going, I went to the crime scene. Here's what this person told me. Here's what this person told me, and here's what I observed. All I'm doing is putting the facts into a written form. Yep, on that, and then you'll get people that if you write a lot of DUIs, they're going to do I don't feel like writing all this, so I'm going to do an AI generated DUI report, and I'll just change a couple of things in there. Well, if they've got to proofread it and there's something they don't catch and you get a smart defense attorney that figures out, wait a minute, this is about the fourth or fifth one I've done of him and it says these same sentences in time and time again. Why is that? And then he gets on the hook for that. And then it goes back into the other ones going, this isn't a fair and accurate report of what you saw then. Now there we go. That's going to be the fun part about it. So, yeah, I mean, it's been, like I said, over 36 years. I remember when Ida Street was a 2-lane dirt road. I remember when there was a railroad trestle that you had to stop for a car. It was only one way through, so if the car was coming, you stopped and let them through, and you had to go through that. When they moved the depot, the train depot, when they moved it from it used to sit right in front of where Freddy's is at, on the backside of Lansing Lumber, and they put it on a trailer, and they moved it where it sits now. So did part of that. Where Econo Lodge and IHOP and all that used to be a big hole in the ground. There wasn't a road down there or anything. So, there's a lot of stuff that, DeSoto Road used to be a dirt road. And when you went south of 4-H, it used to be a dirt road because there was a big old jog in the road down there going out to the country. So, yeah, the city's grown. Like I said, I would say it was probably only 6,000 or 7,000 people when I started out, which doesn't sound like much growth over 30 years. But there's a lot of real estate that we've taken in and stuff, and the things that have changed. When I first started, they didn't have, when we got video camera or in-car cameras, they were the kind that took VHS tapes, and we thought we were doing really well with VHS tapes. Look at this, we can tape record our stuff, and it went from where you had you were writing reports and submitting those, and that's what court went off of, and all the attorneys and everything went off your written report. So you had to be concise. To where now we got video, so now your report. Your video supported what you wrote on your report, so they can go, okay, yeah, that matches up, to where it was like, well, you really need video and you really need a good report, to now we want video because video is the video, and that report had better have a lot of the details that are in the video because people would rather just watch the video than have to write the report on that. So I think the next big thing you'll see happening is you're going to see some 5G body cams come out to where supervisors can just go right online and they're going to just be able to track and talk, with the person and everything right there. That'll be the next big thing that comes up. It's just going to be the instantaneous, right there with you, on that. So we'll see how it goes. It probably won't be in my career, but I know it ain't going to be in my career on there. So I got into this job. I work construction. I worked for several different home builders here in the area before I took this job, and I went, I want a job where I'm not cold in the winter and burning up in the summer, and I got this job. So I ended up working accidents in the winter and outside and standing out there and then doing them in the summer too. And it's a whole new degree when you're in a navy blue uniform. It's made of polyester in Kansas heat. So it was the city didn't charge anything for the weight loss program on that. I will open it up for questions because I know Beth has tons of information that she likes to give out, and and needs hours upon hours upon hours. So, do you all have any questions that I can I can answer for you guys on that? Yes, ma'am.
It's not a question, it's a comment. I want to compliment your officers because we're new to the area.
Mm-hmm.
I was geographically separated from my husband for a while,
Mm-hmm.
and I left my garage door open. And I live down a cul-de-sac in Rock Creek. And like in the middle of the night, your officers were patrolling down there and actually knocked on the door and let me know that the garage door was open. So I do appreciate that. I've left garage door opens before and never had an officer letting us know.
Yeah, and that's and that's one of the things the officers do a good job of that, and I reinforce them on that because a lot of people will say, "Why don't officers never go through my neighborhood?" Well, hey, if your garage door is open and they knock on the door, nobody can say that. The other thing that I do is that we get people in residential areas that you cops never patrol, and we got people speeding all the day. So whenever I assign guys to make sure you hit the residential areas, make sure you use your lights and siren and just hit that siren just enough because people may not see if you don't make noise, but all of a sudden they start hearing sirens and they look out their door and they go, "Oh, somebody stopped out there." It only takes one neighbor to go, "Wow, I saw them out there stopping cars," and this, that. So it helps us a lot. But no, I'm glad they came in. I'm sorry that they had to bother you late at night, but it's.
I'm glad they did. I was by myself.
That is the one thing that I've seen on a lot of videos right now is that the people that are going around breaking into, and we don't have a lot of break-ins. But now those goofballs are starting to carry guns with them whenever they go, and they didn't used to do that. So I've seen, with the ring cameras, you can kind of see people of what's going on, and it's a whole different world than it was 25, 30 years ago on that. So you got a question? You're just holding back. Sure, swear, promise. Did you bring cookies? Yeah.
Kind of right place at the right time. Can you tell that story?
Yeah, Officer Bell, she was, she'd gotten the call, trash pickup on a Thursday, was going through on the north end of town, went down the street, saw a guy mowing his yard, went down the street, came back around, the guy was laying down in the ditch, called 911, Officer Bell got there, he had actually had a heart attack, jumped out, grabbed the AD, started doing CPR, hooked the AD and everything up for him. I believe this guy was like 80 years old, spent, I think, 2 or 3 weeks in the hospital on it, but he's still alive. So basically her, and there was also a lady who was driving down the road that was a nurse, and she stopped and helped too. So, quick response on her side of it to get that side done. That was fantastic job on her side of it. Now you're going to put me on that, trying to think of what officers did, and it's like, oh, man. The officers, being shorthanded as they are, for the most part, the officers do a really good job out here. As the boss, I'm always like, well, you can always do better on that, but they do a really good job, and they do look out for the city on a lot of stuff. It's the small parts. It's that you didn't get your report turned in on time, and I've got to be the bad guy because I want your report and I want it turned in timely. But they're going through the neighborhoods and taking the time out. I've had officers that have seen kids out playing basketball, and they stop and they'll get out and play basketball with kids. And then I get a call from the parent saying, hey, you know what? My kid was out playing basketball, and it made his day that your officer stopped there for 15 or 20 minutes and just shot hoops with him in the driveway. So there's a lot of good stories no matter what you hear. I will tell you that there's for the most part, a lot of my guys, they come to work, they do their job. They go home. They don't cause a lot of problems. In a small town like this, if you got a problem maker, they won't be here very long. Just simply because it's too small of an agency, and there's no place for them to go hide on that. So that's a good thing. So if you ever have any questions or anything, you see one of them driving through, I tell people, your cops are unapproachable. Did you go up and say hi? Well, no. They just looked at this. Maybe he had something on his mind. Just stop him and ask him a couple questions. They're not my guys. I tell them not to talk to people. They'll stop everybody in the world and just talk to them on there. They love to talk. Trust me. Cops love to talk. They'll do it all for a long time. But if you have any questions, just stop them. If they can't answer it, they'll come up and they'll get the answer and get back to you on that. So I don't have anything else. I don't know how much. If I got it, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. If we run super short, then they can if we get run super short, or we're just knocked out on calls and we're busy on, say we got an active domestic, because you don't ever leave an officer by himself on a domestic, and then we'll call the sheriff's department. They'll come in, but sheriff's department runs, if they're having a good night, they've got three district cars, a north, central, and south, and then a supervisor for the whole county. So they're running 4 officers, and the south end is all the way down at Linwood. The middle district's kind of here, and then the other one's on the far north end, up north of Easton. So if you call for a sheriff's deputy, you never know when they'll get there. Leavenworth PD, if they're not busy, but Leavenworth City's a whole different animal when the lights go out. It's a whole different animal up there, because they black out a lot, where they'll call us in to help. If they've got business calls for alarms or anything, they'll call us into the south end to help with them for coverage. So, and they're the same way. They're running shorthanded, but yeah, Leavenworth is a whole different animal. So, anyways, go from there. Okay, Beth, they're kicking me out, and you're over there yawning.
Go ahead. Yeah, take a minute or two break. I've got water here if anybody wants to stretch their legs. Bathroom break, whatever. I'm going to switch out the presentation.
Beth said she baked everybody cookies. Ah, see? They'd have loved you. So, hey, well, I just stayed for center. I'll be there in the morning, Joe.
I'll see you in the morning.
5. Playing pickleball. Yep.
Was something IT related.
No, pickleball. Pickleball. Okay. I'm gonna get out of here. He wants you talking into the mic.
I know. He said I have to hold it because I move around a lot.
Yeah, I just have to make sure that the presentation is selected, which I've done. If I need to change volume, sometimes I have to switch it back. You're going to do it.
I guess, yeah. Yep. I'll do it. I don't want to make it screech though. Okay. Oh yeah, it's on.
You guys seen a lot of flu where you work? Are you starting to get numbers up there? No, yes?
Oh, no, I work from home, so.
Okay. You don't have anybody sort of that's flu-ridden yet? Good. Nope. Maybe it hasn't hit us yet. Have we had some employees out sick? I didn't get nobody in our, that I'm aware of, nobody in
I
our
don't think in your building, not in your building.
All right, Beth, go ahead, take it away.
Okay. Ooh. My name is Beth Sanford. I've been working with the city for 30 years. I started out as the accountant. Went really part-time for a while when I had kids, young kids, and then they asked me to come back and be the finance director. So I've been doing that since 2011. So I oversee the finance department, and we have 5 employees. We actually are on both sides of this building because I oversee municipal court. So this morning I was at the court window taking court payments. But we do have myself, an accountant, a utility billing clerk, and then municipal court clerk and the assistant municipal court clerk. So when you come in the building, either window is going to be staffed by someone from finance. Some of our responsibilities, I won't go through all of them, but finance obviously encompasses payroll, budget, accounting, utility billing, and then municipal court is basically they assist the judge, They handle all the cases that come through that need to go up to district court, and then they prepare bench warrants, prepare dockets for the. We have court here twice a month, the second and fourth Wednesdays of each month, and then we also have a trial date on the third Friday of each month. So if you ever, and it's open, if you ever want to come and watch how court proceeds, you're welcome to come in. We start at 8 o'clock and with attorneys, and then we take everybody else at 9. So went till about 11 today. We had a lot of people show up despite the weather, although the phone rang for 30 minutes straight. Every time I'd answer it and put it down, it would ring, and everybody was calling to see if we were open and having court. So some of them were a little disappointed we were having it. But so just to talk a little bit about the city's budget, the main funds that affect our taxpayers, of course, are the tax levy funds, and the biggest one is our general fund, which is our primary operating fund. So within the general fund are all of the departments like police, parks, and we do have special funds that are also special revenue funds, but for the most part, when we're paying salaries and other operating expenses, it's coming out of our general fund. We have streets, finance, municipal court, several departments. So the second one is our debt service fund, and that is what pays all the debt payments on all our debt that we've issued. The most recent issue that we did was for the swimming pool. It's $9 million. That is actually we collect sales tax for that, and then we transfer it to that debt service fund. But there are just general obligation funds that are issued that we pay debt on. So then the library, they have their own tax levy fund, and that obviously funds all the operations of the library. So, and then our newest fund is our fire department fund, and so this is also the operating fund for our fire department. This is new this year, so you'll see some information from 2024 that I put together. Fire department isn't on there because we didn't have them yet. So, and Steve kind of alluded to that's something new. That's what's one of the challenges was this year in developing our budget, was just kind of trying to estimate what we were going to need to fund this fire department. And we're working with Delaware Township in partnership with them. So they are funding a portion of it. So it's just something new that we're trying to figure out. So we really tried to be a little conservative when we were budgeting and spending other funds just in case we needed extra for the fire department. So we also have 2 enterprise funds, and the enterprise funds, technically, they should always fund themselves with service charges. So your trash and sewer bill basically are what fund these 2 funds. One is our sewer fund, one is our solid waste fund. So basically the solid waste fund is really, we have a third-party contractor, Waste Management, and we pay them. We bill our citizens to pay that bill. So we do charge an administrative fee, but that is more for, like we have a senior discount. If you're over 65, you get $2 off your trash bill. So that helps offset the cost of that. And sadly, we do have people who don't pay their bill. So that kind of helps offset that cost until we can send them to collections and hopefully get some of that back. The sewer utility fund, they have the sewer plant out there, and then they have to treat all the water that comes through. A lot of people will call us and say, hey, our water bill is not as much as our sewer bill, and we don't understand why. And we're like, well, it costs more to treat sewer water than it does to buy clean water. So part of it is that there are a lot of moving pieces and parts at the wastewater plant, and sometimes those wear out and they're pretty expensive to replace as well. So, but neither of these funds have tax money in them. So then these are some of our other funds, and these funds, most of them have some other type of revenue coming into them. However, there are some funds that we do a transfer from our general fund to help with. One of those is our capital improvement fund, and that is the fund where we do our mill and overlay program out of, which, has Mike Spickelmeyer already talked to them, Ken? Okay, so Public Works Director, he probably went over the streets, how he ranks them, what they do every year. It comes out of that capital improvement fund. That fund really doesn't have a revenue source, but we use sales tax that we collect in the general fund to help fund that. So we do a transfer from the general fund every year to cover that. And then some of these are just temporary funds. You'll see there's a town center sewer fund. That's a project that we issued debt for. It will stay as a project fund until it's complete, and then any balance left will be transferred actually to our wastewater fund, because that's where we're making debt payments out of. So anytime a project is complete and there's any extra money left over, if it was funded with debt, the remainder transfers into whatever fund we're paying debt out of. So trying to see if there's any other exciting ones. You'll see the swimming pool sales tax fund too. That's one that we collect that sales tax and we transfer it to our debt service fund to pay on debt. This is just a little chart showing our revenues for 2024. You'll see a lot of people will call and say, hey, the police, they're funding your whole budget. And if you look, they're funding about 4%. It's 4% of our revenues. So obviously the majority is property tax. Then we'll have sales tax, and both from the county and local sales tax. And then some franchise fees. So any questions about that? Other would be, we have a community center. We have an activity center, so rental fees for that. That's where our bank interest comes in. Smaller revenues that wouldn't necessarily. And they fluctuate a lot, just depends on the year. Here's just kind of a breakdown of our 2024 expenses by fund, and I usually just do the funds that have salaries in them and our tax levy funds. So next year, fire department will be on this chart as well. No. Yeah, well, we had a fairly healthy fund balance from the previous year, so we intended to spend some of that down rather than raise taxes. So we wouldn't have budgeted. We couldn't have budgeted. You can't budget for a deficit, so we would not have been able to budget like that. We would have had to cut expenses before we did our budget. Yeah. If we started at zero, we would have had to cut something. But and that's why you always have a fund balance. We have a kind of an informal policy, and most cities do, where you're going to carry between 17 and 25% of expenses or revenues forward each year. Any questions on this one? There you can kind of see all the general fund departments. Yeah, salaries and benefits. And that's usually the biggest piece of the pie. Debt payment? Yeah, it's getting ready to drop off. So it's not a tax levy fund. It's generated from, it's really just the sewer rates. Sewer rate, well, I would love to say that, but every time I think we're going to pay off debt, our wastewater director comes in and goes, well, these pipes over here, they're failing, so we've got to do another project and replace all of those. So it's a constant maintaining of, they just did, I don't know if you watched the well, we don't film the work sessions, do we? He did a work session on the I&I study that they just did, and it's kind of fascinating to watch because I don't ever think about the sewer pipes, but they're like, well, this is failing. We found 3 manholes that we didn't know existed. We need to cut this one off, and we need to do this. And of course, all of it is at a cost of about $100,000. So, you know, it all adds up. Yeah. So they have several projects that they just.
It's not just pipes that are failing, it's also trying to build out infrastructure
Mm-hmm.
to attract additional residential and commercial industrial growth.
Yeah.
That's why your sewer rates aren't going down at the time. They want to use that to build out.
Right, and I thought that one of our very first meetings, we discussed about the sewer, the wastewater treatment plant, that it was actually overbuilt, maybe the word was.
Yeah.
Back in 2004, sure. Yeah, they figured the city was going to.
Yeah, they had to plan ahead for, but like, you know, I don't know if you noticed they did sewer line out to McIntyre just recently, and that was a big project. I'm sorry. Oh, that would be a question for Tony. Oh, have you done? You have them next week. Okay.
These are going to be good questions for next month.
Yeah.
We service the state penitentiary,
Mm-hmm.
so that the flows haven't changed. So I think what we get from them has changed, but the service we provide to them has not changed in 20 years.
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right, moving on to property taxes. That was a good segue into that. So you'll hear us talk about mills when we're talking about the property taxes. And the 2024 mill levy was for Lansing residents was $139.158, and the city portion of that was $41.909. So, and then in comparison, the 2023 mill levy was $132.556. So there's 2 variables when you're trying to figure out what your taxes are going to be. And the city can manipulate one variable, but the assessed valuation on your house is the other variable, and we don't have any control over that. Mm-hmm. So even though we may stay revenue neutral, if they go up more than a certain percentage, you're probably going to see an increase. So until your house value goes down, but nobody wants that down to do that either. So if you're ever curious and you want to calculate your property tax, all you need to do is know what your assessed valuation is, and the county typically will send you a letter with that number, and you just do this formula. Residential property is calculated at 11.5%, so 11.5% is what is taxed. So on a $200,000 home, took it by 11.5%. That's $23,000. 1 mil is 1/1000th. So divided by 23,000 by 1,000, and then take it by whatever the mill levy is, and that will give you a rough estimate. Every time I do it, it's a little bit off. It's just rounding, with all those numbers. So in this scenario, the city portion of the tax would be $963.91, which is about $80 a month. So roughly about the amount of your sewer bill if you use 6 units. If you have trash, it's only 19. Sewer and trash. $78.50 is a normal bill for sewer and trash if you're at 6 units. If you use 6 units of water. So, and you're just. So this is just kind of a picture of a lot of talk around budget time is that revenue neutral rate. That was a new law where cities have to send out notice and hold a hearing if they're going to exceed the revenue neutral rate. We were fortunate with our fund balance that we had. We were able to kind of absorb that revenue neutral rate for a few years. The problem is it's not sustainable. Costs keep going up, and once we eat into that fund balance and dip that reserve low enough, we don't want to keep eating into that and end up in in a deficit or in a situation where we don't have enough funds to fund everything we need to provide. So everybody has to make hard choices. And you'll see like the county, and I think City of Leavenworth might have even gone up a little bit, or chosen not to remain revenue neutral. But basically what it is you're just assessing the same amount of tax dollars that you did the year before. And the problem with that is if you want to increase your services, if you want to increase your staff or give staff increase their compensation, any kind of that, unless you have some other revenue source that's going to offset that, there's no way to stay revenue neutral. So. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the reason that jump this year is because instead of the FD1 having a tax levy, that was absorbed by the city. So it's technically a wash, but it looks weird when you just look at the city alone because it looks like we jumped up 9 mills. But that's the reason is we took on the fire department. And
From 2022 to 2025, it's about 30%. Is that not, you know, if I'm looking at value of 1 mil?
mm-hmm. Oh, between the, it was about 3% each year. I think one of them was higher.
Well, no, I'm looking from 96,978 to 1 million. That's about a 30% increase.
Oh.
What?
Well, there was one year it went up like 13%. Property valuation went up like 13%. Yeah. And you'll notice those are the years we stayed revenue neutral, so we didn't benefit from that. Because if you look at the property tax levied, we actually were a little bit lower in 2024. That number, the 2025 is really hard to gauge. We actually did stay neutral, but because we brought the fire department on, it looks like we went up. So just kind of a weird year. And this is just another breakdown of your taxing entities for residents. The state is just 1%. Interestingly enough, they levy 1.5 mills every year, and they don't have to hold a revenue neutral budget hearing. They just 1.5 mills. So if the assessed valuation goes up, they get more money. And then you've got the county, 27%. Lansing City is at 30%, and then the school district makes up about 42%. And that's pretty standard. It's been that way for years. That's that breakdown. It hasn't fluctuated much. And then the little graph above will show you on a $100,000 home, $200,000 or $300,000 home, the portion of your taxes that go to each entity. And this graph doesn't really do much for me, but this is the mill levy, just the historic mill levy. And it shows it going down. Doesn't mean, again, it doesn't mean that we levied less tax necessarily. It just means that the valuation went up and we were able to stay revenue neutral, so our levy went down naturally that way. On to our utility rates. So residential wastewater, it's a $19 base fee and then $6.75 per unit of water. And a unit of water equals 750 gallons of water. So once a year, we get an average report from the water department that shows your usage from the months of December through March. And we base the rest of the year's usage on that rate. So hopefully we always use those months because we figure nobody's filling up a swimming pool, nobody's watering lawns. You may have a water leak, and if you're like me, you got college kids who come home and use the shower all the time, but typically those are low usage months for water. But we do offer anybody who thinks that usage is high, they are welcome to bring in 3 months worth of their water bills. We will re-average. If it's less, we'll bump them down. If it's more, we just leave them where they are. We just tell them we'll re-average when we get the report again. So you're always welcome to do that. We just can't do it every month. We've got 3,000 accounts. It would be hard to go in and manually change all of those every month. So, any questions on that? Then trash removal, it's $19 a month currently. Senior rate, if you're over 65, it's $17 a month. However, we are looking at a trash rate increase. Waste Management did come back to us and say they needed to raise rates. And it looks like it's going to go up to $22 a month with a $20 senior rate. So that will be coming on the June 1 billing, which is actually for May usage. So just be prepared for that. 65. Yep, and all you need to do is bring in your driver's license and show it to us, and we'll get you set up. Yeah.
It looks like at this point, I'm going by the survey results, that will not be changing recycling frequency. And that's
Yeah.
council, I guess the council will ultimately decide.
Council decides that. So that's one of the options we had was they offered, hey, we won't do as much of an increase if you switch to every other week recycling. My opinion, I think that's a nightmare because first of all, nobody's going to remember when the recycling pickup day is. And we have a lot of people, including myself, who my recycling cart is full first versus my trash cart. So we did do a survey. We put that out, and basically the results came in that most people preferred to have it every week. So the other option, I suggested that we also look at yard waste and say, hey, what if we remove that? What can you do for us there? The council really wasn't in favor of that. So I was like, okay, we'll just keep that. So that's why we did have an option of where we could do every other week recycling. But again, I think for the most part, the council seemed to think it was better to have continuity and have those services available every week. So $22 is actually still a pretty good rate for the area. I think Baser is paying $24 or $25 a month. So it's pretty comparable.
Not real recently, but we have looked at, because people have complained, especially when Dept and Waste Management have had problems consistently.
Mm-hmm.
I think there have been some quick looks at having our own trash department, and the cost of that, you need at least 2 trucks, more staff. The cost of that compared to what we were paying for Waste Management, as I recall, we couldn't come close to
No, the rates would be much higher. Yeah, just paying the tipping fees.
as their own trash department.
Yeah. One of those trucks, those trucks cost like almost $1 million. And you can't just have one. Yeah. And that's the other thing. We have to pay tipping fees there, and yeah, so all those costs add up, plus employees, and yeah. So I will say that Waste Management, I think their service has improved quite a bit. We still do get people who are missed. We do have, if you go on our website, up at the top, you can report if your trash is missed. The sooner you get it into us, the faster we can get it to them. But they are going to roll out a new option for, they call us, we're residential, but we're kind of commercial because we oversee the contract. But they're going to have an app, and I think they have it right now. I think it's kind of clunky. I've reached out to our rep, and he's supposed to be getting information to where you'll have the app. You can install the app on your phone, and you can go and report missed trash directly to them. You can report if your cart is damaged, anything, a bulky item pickup, you'll be able to do all of that directly to them versus going through us, because sometimes you'll report it to us, we send off something to them, and we hear nothing back from them. And then you call us again, and we're like, oh, we never heard from them. Let us try again. And for whatever reason, I don't know if they're having a busy week or whatever, we don't hear back. So we're kind of a middleman where we'll be like, oh yeah, they'll come and get it. And then you call back, they never came and got it. And people get frustrated with that, understandably. So this kind of eliminates us as a middleman for that. So hopefully that will be coming soon. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. Yeah, you could use the website too. Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah. So we are working on that. So hopefully that's going to roll out soon. Yes. The other thing we are getting is new software, which is kind of why that's been on my back burner right now. We are getting new. We've gotten new financial software, and part of that piece is utility billing. That will not roll out until July. However, at that point, we will be able to email bills rather than mail them. And I know a lot of bills, for some reason, come back. There's nothing wrong with the address, but for whatever reason, they didn't get delivered. So that gives you another option. If you would rather have your bill emailed to you, we would love to do that because it saves on postage and we ensure that you get it then. So look for more information on that. And the bills will look a little bit different. So I think we'll have more availability to put messages on there too when things like that happen. The other thing I would encourage you is when we have a storm like this, go to our website, check it, because that's where we're going to put out if trash is delayed like it is this week. As soon as we get word, we try to put it out there. We have a trash hotline, and I thought I had it updated, and the message didn't take, so I had to re-update it. But you can call that. Usually it's up to date as far as whether trash will be delayed or not. Yeah. See, and some people get a phone call, and I'm not sure why. Oh. Maybe you do. I bet you do then, yeah. Oh, good. Yeah. Yeah, hopefully you will. Right now, when people call like to do a bulky item pickup, we have to give them this customer ID number, and it's the city customer ID number, so it's not specific to an address. So you can't go online and request it because it pulls up the city of Lansing, and it's like, no, this isn't the right address. And so hopefully that's what they're fixing with this new communication piece that they've rolled out. So that'll be nice because then you can yell at them if you need to. But for the most part, they're pretty responsive. I feel like they try to do a good job. Obviously, with weather like this, we try to be a little bit lenient. And also, when they are picking up, I always tell people trash is the first priority. You don't want smelly trash sitting there. Yard waste is the least priority. So if they are short trucks, yard waste is probably going to suffer. We don't want trash suffering when there's a shortage. And recycling is usually pretty good. So the only trouble we seem to have a lot with is if somebody's a house line. And we do have several people who are house line where the drivers get out of the truck, go up to the house and get the cart and take it down. And I think if they have new drivers who aren't familiar with the route, those people get missed. So, but please do either submit your request, say, hey, we were missed, or please call us so at least we know, because we do try to keep track of that so we can let them know where it's happening constantly. So. And here's just a little short thing, and I think, just the value of your city services. So this is what you get for paying taxes in the city of Lansing. Obviously the police and fire protection, and then all of the city parks and trails, and soon a pool, the street lighting. Our guys do a great job plowing the streets this time of year. Community events, the library, code enforcement, and then our planning and zoning of our community. So. when you're thinking about, oh, I have to pay these taxes, consider the benefit of it. Any other questions or comments? Yes.
I noticed in the very first, no, not very first page, it's one of the very first pages, that you have a managed city investments. Could you elaborate on that just a little bit?
Actually, so we have if we have a project that we know is going to take 6 months, we will move it. We don't want to keep funds just in our bank account. We want to invest those in CDs. The Kansas Municipal Investment Pool, they have, not crypto. That's not in our policy, but.
Ask about that question in 12 months when she's doing the next presentation.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what's the city invest in? I'm just curious.
Typically, it's just CDs, and we have the state municipal investment pool, which is basically just, an investment fund. Kansas, yeah, they have it. Lots of cities keep it there. Actually, a lot of times they beat out the banks, which is why we put our money there. Yeah, so, and they have overnight, they have CDs, they have all kinds of different options, so. Mm-hmm. Yes. So you guys were annexed. Gosh, when was that? It's been years and years and years. Yeah. And I think at that point, that's why you still have I'm not sure why they never changed your address to Lansing. I can't speak to that. Yeah. Because when we do the bills, we have a lot of Leavenworth addresses that are Lansing, but they were once part of the county, and they never changed that address. And we have to follow what county GIS and what the post office tells us to follow. Otherwise, they're not going to mail our bills. And the Baser water, I think it's just, I don't know anything about water as far as like how the water lines run, but I would assume it's the closest water plant, maybe? I don't know. So, yeah. And actually, that part of the city, at the time we annexed, we gave them the option to choose the trash service with the city or use whatever trash service they were using. And that has never been changed. So but once you chose the city, you had to stay with the city services. So we still have people in that area that do not use waste management, which is interesting. Yeah. So, and it's been, 20 years? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, yeah. But it's kind of like the school district. They have Leavenworth. Well, they have part of Leavenworth in their district. So, I don't know. You got a question, Joe? Oh, okay. How's our IT? Sure.
Read we're out here on McIntyre Road, and I think it would be east of K7.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a subdivision coming in there, 412 houses.
That's what I've heard too.
And I see, we did put our new sewer lines through there, and
Yeah.
Kevin mentioned new growth and stuff like that. Will that help to
Offset the cost of.
maybe offset the sewer rates? And also, what would be the price range of those houses? Do we know that yet?
From what I've heard, I think they're in the $300,000 range. Yeah. So I think it's still at the planning commission level, frankly. Yeah. 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 So yeah, and that may be something that would drive that sewer cost down a little bit. That's something we're going to have. We need to probably do another sewer rate study here in the next year or two. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It might be 412 houses, but if it's successful and it still works out, you're only looking at 60 to 70 houses being built
Yeah, it's going to take a while to build all that up. Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be a big growth in the city, which is other challenges because then we have other areas that we have to, our police force and fire, all of those things factor in. So. I should have done a slide of Sherwood Forest.
Is there a plan to run sewer out to there? Because right now we have septic, so is that
That might be a question for our wastewater director in his long-range plan. Yeah. Yeah, I just do the bills. So yeah.
where it stopped at, or why they didn't offer?
I think they went right up to the corner of McIntyre, and with the intent that any development that went on at that corner or further down could tie in then. And I think a couple people, what is that, Willow Point that's off of 7? Where the bigger houses are in that circle? Is that one that's right off of 7? A couple of those residences tied into our sewer at the time because it was right in their backyard. So I know that did happen. They offered it to anybody who wanted it. But so you're interested in sewer, is what you're saying?
I don't know. I mean, I kind of like septic because I don't have to pay $80 a month for
Yeah,
wastewater. But I was just curious.
yeah. The same thing is, it's like DeSoto Road. We have people that are still on septic, and then we have people that choose to tie into the sewer. And I think it's $3,500 to tie into our sewer. Mm-hmm. So, but not all of them are. But yeah, it's great. I know you have to replace your septic tank occasionally, but and the laterals, there's a cost to that, but it's, yeah.
One other question too. Did you guys do the fire department fund by itself this year just because it's new?
We,
Going to roll into the general fund next year?
I think the intent is we're probably always going to have it separate in some way because we have another entity that we're partnering with, and we want to be very clear that, funds that they are providing for fire protection are staying for fire protection and not rolling into a general fund where it's funding other projects. So yeah, and we've already had one meeting with the combined entities, and I just do a little budget report then. Our fire chief gives kind of a summary of all the services that he's providing and the different calls they've made in different areas. So yeah, everybody seems to be working really well together. We've really enjoyed having the fire department join the city. It's a great group of guys, and I think it's been a very positive move.